Alright, I promised this one a few months ago. This is a tier list for the most popular movies on Letterboxd, or at least as of whenever this list was made here. Uh, doesn't have I don't see a creation date on here anywhere. Based on cursory glance, I'm guessing this is about circa late 2018, early 2019. I imagine the top 40 is different by now. Okay, so here are our categories today. Loved it, liked it, meh, disliked or hated it, which I decided to bundle together to keep this thing from being too unwieldy, and haven't seen it. At one point I had put in haven't seen it but want to, and haven't seen it but don't want to as separate categories, but since I bundled disliked and hated, I figured why not bundle those as well and make this a little, not have this thing be too unwieldy. Of course, unfortunately, I imagine much like the Pixar one, the haven't seen is going to take up like about half of these. But we are starting off with a great one. Arrival. That is such a good movie. It's one of the best things I've seen Amy Adams or Jeremy Renner in. It's great sci-fi. The score is amazing, and the guy who did the score for the movie he died way too young. He could have been huge. The director of this, Denis Villeneuve, he's about the only reason I have any hope for the Dune movie that's coming soon. Thing is, I can't really talk too much about why this movie is amazing without spoiling it, and I really think people should see that. I probably recommend that movie more than most of the films on here, and that's including ones that I like. So, speaking of liked, I'm going to put Inception up there. It's not a terrible movie. I do think, although to be honest, I am souring a little bit more and more on Christopher Nolan's oeuvre in general as he continues to be more of a arrogant douchebag, and his whole thing with Tenet may have quite possibly killed the movie theater industry, which, not great. I do think, while some scenes in Inception do appear to be, at least visually speaking, heavily inspired by the anime Paprika, I don't think it's fair to call the movie a ripoff, especially since, as I understand it, Inception, the idea of the script for Inception was something that Nolan had been working on for like a decade before he finally started filming it, and I think Paprika came out in the middle of that. So, while I don't doubt that Paprika influenced him, and he probably should be more open about that, because I think he maybe said it once to like a French magazine or something, I don't want to call it a ripoff. But yeah, it's not a terrible movie at all. It's a great looking film, but my personal opinion on the writer and director, having dipped in the past couple of years, definitely affects how I feel about that and other films of his, too. Maybe not Memento. I think I probably would have still put Memento in the loved it section if that were on here, but I don't see it on here anywhere. Speaking of people souring, people causing me to lower my opinions of their movies, this one's on the lead actor, though, not the writer or director. Look, Guardians of the Galaxy and Guardians of the Galaxy 2 are wonderful movies overall, easily some of the best stuff that Marvel Studios has put out, but it is hard to get past just what a kind of a low-key douchebag that Chris Pratt is. It's easier with him than it is with some other actors because he's not, like, overtly awful. Like, say, someone like, Johnny Depp, who will get drunk and be verbally and physically abusive to staff on films. And before anybody comes into my mentions, yes, I've heard the tape. Amber Heard is awful, too. I don't like either of them. Stop accusing me of simping for her. I want her out of Aquaman 2. I want Johnny Depp to never get to do another Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Just fuck both of them. Both of them. Okay, Johnny Depp stands, and And before you comment, how about you look up what the word both means, since my interactions with you on Twitter have taught me that you don't. Whew. That you don't understand what both means. Oh, God. Sorry. Tangent. Yeah, still looking forward to Guardians 3, though. It's just going to be less fun knowing that Pratt is still in it. Okay, next up we have Star Wars The Force Awakens. That one's going in liked it. It does rehash A New Hope in a lot of ways, but it is not... Some people say it's completely derivative, and I don't think that's fair at all. I think this movie, while it does hit a lot of the same major plot beats as A New Hope, it covers some themes that A New Hope didn't. Particularly with, aging and legends and stuff like that. And family, and the family thing came more into play in Empire and Return of the Jedi. And honestly, it seems to sort of fit the pattern where it's good to let J.J. Abrams do one movie in your franchise, just don't let him come back to do a second one. I thought, you had really great leads with Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, and Oscar Isaac, and it's really a pity that they were not allowed to stick the landing because Disney caved in to the absolute worst side of the fandom when it came time to do Rise of Skywalker. But, yeah, we're not talking about that one. Interstellar, we're going back to Nolan. You know what? I will actually defend this movie to an extent, even though I'm not as big on Nolan as I used to be. Because I think some people were a little unfair to it, because... Nolan pretty much set out from the beginning to do, sort of his homage to Steven Spielberg, which is why this movie feels a lot more sentimental than Nolan's other works before and since then. But honestly, I think that benefits this movie a little. I think there's one scene, with Anne Hathaway, that I would have changed completely. But apart from that, I really do think it's a genuinely solid movie with some good acting. Definitely some of the best stuff I ever saw Matthew McConaughey do. And, while we're talking about this, one weird thing I saw on social media when this movie was in theaters, you had people accusing this movie of being pro-moon landing denial. Because there was a character in the movie who said that the moon landing was fake. Yeah, here's the thing. Lindsay Ellis was saying this, too. I distinctly remember that. She's probably deleted the tweet since then. But she was saying that, it was glorifying moon landing denial. The character who denies the moon landing exists gets mocked to her face by the main protagonist of the film. I think that says pretty clear how the movie actually feels about people who say the moon landing was faked, and it's not that it was, it's that people who think it was are worthy of mockery, basically. So, yeah. Don't know what you were thinking there, Lindsay, or all the other people on Twitter who are making the same arguments. Just because you have a moon landing denier in a movie does not mean that the movie is pro-moon landing denial. Okay, we're going to another liked one. The Shape of Water. I can tell even without the title being visible there. Not Guillermo del Toro's best, or at least not my favorite of his. It's definitely no Pan's Labyrinth, but I enjoyed it. Doug Jones was great as usual. You had a great supporting cast. It was a little on the nose, but I think considering the era it was trying to evoke, it was sort of trying to evoke your 50s monster movies in its presentation. And I think it captured that pretty well. Not terribly nuanced, but I don't think it needed to be. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I definitely liked it. I might watch it again at some point, although I don't get to rewatch movies very often just because of how hectic my life is. Oh, here we are. Our first haven't seen it. Grand Budapest Hotel. Okay. I like Wes Anderson's style of movies. not sure I'm too big on him as a person. I mean, I don't think he's like terrible or anything. I think he's more oblivious to some of the more problematic aspects of his films. I mean, I am not going to see the Darjeeling Limited. I saw like Renegade Cut cover that, and it just looked awful and frankly kind of racist. But Grand Budapest Hotel, I mean, maybe I'll check that one out. I've heard some stuff from the soundtrack, and I liked that. And I mean, really liked Moonrise Kingdom. I loved The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. That's a great movie. But yeah, haven't seen Grand Budapest Hotel yet. Her, haven't seen it. Don't particularly want to be honest. It just doesn't look like my kind of thing. Whiplash, haven't seen it, and I imagine I probably wouldn't like it because I heard George Hrab's like 30-minute rant about the problem with the movie, and he was coming at it from the perspective of someone who has been a drummer for like 3 decades, a professional drummer for 3 decades, who's been to music schools and has had music teachers, and he knows his drums. And it's just, he had all sorts of problems with this movie, and his tirade, it's epic. You can find it on SoundCloud, actually. He had enough of a positive response to the rant on his podcast, the Geologic podcast, that he isolated his Whiplash rant and put it up on SoundCloud. So it's George Hrab spelled H-R-A-B, and, just Google it and you should be able to find it. Dunkirk, haven't seen it. No strong opinions there. Get Out. Oh, that is such a good movie. It is probably the best horror movie that I've seen in theaters, if not seen, period. An amazing directorial debut from Jordan Peele. There was stuff in there that even I, as a white dude, was able to grasp. And, I mean, the whole audience, we were just... When at the end, I hope I'm not spoiling too much, but like at the end, when the cop car shows up, and you see the lights reflecting off the main character's face, and it's just the entire audience tensed up. But when it turned out that it wasn't what we thought, if you've ever heard like a couple of dozen people, I was seeing it on a Tuesday morning, if you've ever heard a couple dozen people just all breathe a sigh of relief at the same time before, it is quite the experience. Alright, next up, a movie that was not so much ruined by its director or writer as it was ruined by its fandom. I really did like Fight Club for a long time there, but so many people they practically built a religion around missing the point of the movie. It's really hard to admit that you think this is a well-made movie in public without people giving you a side eye, and honestly, I can't blame them at all. In fact, I tend to agree with, I forget who it was that said it, but someone said it's like, someone can like Fight Club, but if they say it's their favorite movie, that's a bit of a red flag. So, it's soured enough for me to not put it in liked anymore, but I can't say I dislike it, because it's still a really well-made movie with a good soundtrack and good acting and great editing. It's just... way too many people missed the point of the film, and those people are incredibly insufferable and just ugh. So I'm putting it in meh instead of disliked or liked. Gone Girl, haven't seen it. Kind of don't want to be honest. Blade Runner 2049. There are some harsh criticisms of this movie that I do completely agree with. But, I mean, I'll drag the movie over that, and I don't like that Jared Leto is in it, but I think everything else about it works just well enough that I can put it in liked. I think it is probably the best sequel to Blade Runner we could have hoped for. There are some aspects of the film that I think should have been done differently, but... on the whole, I think the rest of the movie is strong enough, especially like the cinematography and the editing and the score. I think a lot of people. I mean, okay, maybe Harrison Ford did phone it in a little bit, but it wasn't terrible. I mean, not like going back to the Force Awakens for a second. It's like, you know, I mean, there was like a 20-year gap there where like Harrison Ford would basically just show up for the paycheck and just would not seem to put any effort into it at all. But for those two, for Force Awakens and Blade Runner 2049, I think he really did. Less so for 2049, I think, but not bad. Okay, next up we have Call Me By Your Name. Haven't seen it, and I'm not going to because fuck Armie Hammer sideways. Holy shit, that guy is a fucking creep. Oof. That makes me more sad that we don't get to see his character get his ass beat at the end of Sorry to Bother You. But on the polar opposite of that, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Holy shit. I'm just going to say it, I think this is the best Spider-Man movie. Even better than the first two Sam Raimi's. Just so good. Probably not great if you're photosensitive and you have epilepsy, but for everybody else, oof, yeah, oh, that sounded so incredibly condescending. I am so sorry if there's anyone with epilepsy watching this show. Yeah, but I mean, if you can deal with the flashing, with like sort of the bright flashing lights that permeate the movie, the animation style, or I should say styles, because of how they integrate the characters from different realities, it's just the voice acting is spot on. The story is tight. They got a great villain, great supporting cast. I love the soundtrack. Just, I have nothing bad to say about Into the Spider-Verse, really. Apart from maybe they should have been more considerate about, people with epilepsy in the audience. Moonlight, haven't seen it. Heard it's pretty good, though. I might check it out at some point. Okay, here we go. Here's our first one for the disliked or hated category. And this is not going to be a popular opinion, but I don't care. I did not like Kubrick's The Shining. I just didn't. I mean, I agree with Stephen King that Kubrick completely missed the point of the book, and I mean, and there's also just how Kubrick treated Shelley Duvall while filming, and I mean, I guess it's a well-made movie, but and there's a place for style over substance. I will say that there are plenty of movies that I like that are absolutely gorgeous but have like no real story to speak of, and that's fine. But I think The Shining was supposed to have a point, and I think it kind of got muddled in the visual style that Kubrick was going for. And it's like, again, I'll give him props for accomplishing that style. I just don't think it served the movie at all, so I don't care for it. Let's see here. Quiet Place, haven't seen it. Ex Machina, haven't seen it. 2001: A Space Odyssey, meh. I don't hate anything about it, but I don't like anything about it either, particularly. For its time, it was definitely a visual effects marvel, but effects had already moved on pretty considerably by the time I saw it as a kid, because, I was born like 20 years after it came out or something. And the story just doesn't do much for me. The acting is okay. Only okay. It's got some quotable lines, definitely, and, it inspired a lot of better movies that came after it, so I can't be too hard on it. But, yeah, 2001: Space Odyssey goes into the meh, which I'm thinking might actually be more controversial than me putting The Shining in disliked. La La Land, a.k.a. White Boy Saves Jazz. No, I haven't seen it, but I've seen some spoilers on it, and I just know that I won't like it. I heard a song from it, specifically the song that won an Oscar, and I'm just like, Why? It's not a great song. Why? Just why? Favorite? Haven't seen, but I might like to see that at some point. I've heard it's pretty good. Three Billboards. Ugh, yikes. I haven't seen it, but I know enough about it to know that I won't like it. I'm pretty confident of that. I saw the Renegade Cut episode about that. You can look that one up. If you don't subscribe to Renegade Cut, why not? Great channel. Yeah, some people are just not qualified to write about race, and the people who wrote this movie, the guy who wrote this movie, falls into that category. Birdman, haven't seen it. I kind of go back and forth on if I want to or not. I like Michael Keaton as an actor. I like the premise. Unfortunately, I kind of had the ending spoiled for me, and I mean, granted, it's possible I might enjoy it anyway, even knowing that. There's plenty of movies where I've known the quote-unquote twist ending, or ambiguous ending, I guess, before going in, but maybe someday. Unlike a lot of these other ones and haven't seen it, I think I'm interested. It's just a matter of time, and there are things that I want to see more. So it's like, really, of the haven't seen it, Birdman, Grand Budapest, and Moonlight are probably the only... Oh, and maybe The Favorite are the only ones I have any particular interest in. Silence of the Lambs hasn't aged particularly well in a lot of ways, particularly with the Buffalo Bill character, but I mean, it's still a really well-made movie with great acting and great tension, and as something as Jodie Foster recently pointed out on her WTF interview with Mark Maron, the guy who directed it was not a guy known for doing serious films, so this movie had a bit of a handicap going in, but it overcame it and became brilliant, and it's a shame none of the stuff that came after it was particularly good, but let's see, I'm guessing this is just for Chapter 1, because I know they split it in two. Haven't seen it, don't particularly want to. Not sure why Incredibles 2 is on here, but not Incredibles 1, considering Incredibles 1 is much better, but I'm putting that one in meh, but I think it's really only meh by Pixar standards. I didn't particularly hate anything about it. I think that it just felt like it could have been more, especially with how long a gap there was between it and the first one. I mean, who was it that said it's like Incredibles 2 kind of felt like the rushed direct-to-DVD sequel that a lot of people feared Incredibles 2 would be, except instead of being rushed, it took 14 years. Bohemian Rhapsody, haven't seen it, don't want to. Fuck Bryan Singer. And apparently in quite a few ways, the movie does Freddie Mercury dirty, even though Rami Malek did a good job of playing him from everything I've seen. Yeah, not doing that. The Revenant, haven't seen it, don't want to. Doctor Strange was okay. It's not my favorite of the Marvel movies. Not a big fan of Benedict Cumberbatch, to be honest. I don't think he's that great. I don't know who I would have picked to play Stephen Strange, in all honesty, but I probably wouldn't have gone with him, and I mean, I can kind of understand the logic behind it, but not really a fan of the whitewashed casting for the Ancient One as much as I like Tilda Swinton. And even though, to her credit, I think she did a great job with the part, but Hereditary, haven't seen it. I know we're going through a bit of like a horror movie renaissance right now, but the problem is it's like a lot of the trailers for these horror movies these days come across as a little pretentious, and it kind of turns me off of seeing them. And it's only after they're out and like everybody I know gushes about how good they are that I have any interest at all. And then, my luck, it's like one of the two streaming services I actually subscribe to doesn't have it. I might check out Hereditary someday. Now, Black Panther, that one's going up into the loved it category, and I do I even need to say why it belongs up there? Honestly, I think if I listed all the reasons Black Panther belongs and loved it, that would take up like a third of this video. And we've still got like 7 movies to go here, so... And how long have I been recording? Hold on. I'm going to be editing this part out because it's going to look wrong. But you'll be hearing back from me in a second. Okay, almost 27 minutes for me. It'll be shorter when this is edited, of course, but... Inglourious Basterds. I did want to see that, but then the whole thing about Quentin Tarantino almost getting Uma Thurman killed on the set of Kill Bill Part 2 came out, and just kind of turned me off his work in general. It's like, I'm really glad it looks like his Star Trek movie is dead, because, yikes. At most, I'd wait for that one on video, on like home video, if not skip it completely. I mean, the Tarantino movies that I did get to see before those revelations came out, I still have a largely positive view on. We're going to get to one of those in a second, actually, but... are you fucking kidding me with this pop-up? Okay, hold on. No, I don't need that right now. Ugh. And because I was talking when it popped up, I can't just edit that out. Great. All right. Mad Max Fury Road. Oh, such a good movie. Are you... God damn it, Avast! What is wrong with you? Stupid pop-ups broke my flow. Yeah, Mad Max Fury Road, great movie, great looking movie, great sounding movie. The acting is solid from everybody involved, even characters who don't have many lines. It is one of the best action movies I have ever seen. It is one of the best sequels I've ever seen. It's one of the best reboots I've ever seen. Because, I mean, it's kind of technically both. It's like, can we just sort of pretend that Tom Hardy is Mad Max now? We can just ignore Mel Gibson. Hoping we get another one of these, and it's like if you went back in time like a good 10 years and said that in a few years there would be a Mad Max movie that would be nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars, no one would have believed you, but damn, it deserved it. It was just, wow. Avengers Infinity War. Okay. As part of the whole, it's a great movie. By itself, it's okay. I'm going to put it in liked it, but I think it really works best as part of the whole series. While some of the Marvel movies actually can kind of stand on their own, Guardians of the Galaxy being a good example there, the first Avengers works even if you haven't seen any other films, Black Panther definitely. Infinity War just doesn't have that going for it, and that's what's kind of keeping me from putting it in the loved it category. And also, it doesn't quite have like that sort of epic moment that Endgame had, but it also kind of couldn't because of it being a part 1 of 2, so that put some limitations on the movie that it just was not going to be able to overcome because that would undermine the one to come after it. But I think with all of that, even with all of that baggage, with all the continuity, all of the things that it couldn't do because of the one that was going to come out after it, I still think it turned out pretty good. Although Gamora was done dirty, and I'm not happy about that. But anyway. So I mentioned that the Tarantino movies that I got to see before the revelations of the just horrible job he did to Uma Thurman and Kill Bill. Pulp Fiction, good movie. Sort of like a what's the word I want to use here? I don't want to say masterpiece, but definitely I want to use a high praising type of word to describe how good of an example it is of nonlinear writing. Because the thing is, if you're going to do nonlinear writing, you can't just write your story linear and then just chop it up and rearrange it. That doesn't work. When you do it really well, you get something like Pulp Fiction where someone actually took the film and re-edited it to put all the events in chronological order, and it sucked. And it was sort of like when someone did that with Godfather 1 and 2. Someone cut it up to like take the flashback sequences from 2 and then put them before 1 and then all that, and it was just not good at all. But I mean, Pulp Fiction, well made, great soundtrack, which is always a plus. Really, really excellent use of nonlinear storytelling. It's Samuel L. Jackson at his most Samuel L. Jackson. I mean, I do still think it's a good movie. I don't know if I would recommend it to someone who hasn't seen it before, given what I know about the director. But if you saw the movie before we learned all that about him, I think it's still okay to enjoy it. Lady Bird, haven't seen it. Not particularly sure I want to. Dark Knight. Okay, I think parts of it have not aged particularly well. But I do still think it's a well-made movie overall. I think Heath Ledger did a great job. Actually, I think for the most part, the supporting cast was better than most of the leads. Hans Zimmer's score was great. If I were making this video like a few years ago, I'd probably put it in loved it, but for now I'm going to only put it in liked. And Baby Driver, haven't seen it, don't want to, because fuck Kevin Spacey. Alright, and there you have it. My ranking list of the top 40 Letterboxd films as ranked on the movie social media site Letterboxd up there. I have a Letterboxd account, by the way. I'm going to link to that in the show notes. And I'll probably link to some of the other things in the show notes if I can remember to do that. Yeah, I think I'm going to try and put George Hrab's Whiplash rant in there while I'm at it. And, yeah. You know, actually, that went better than I expected, because, you know, for some reason, I thought I was going to end up putting more movies in the disliked or hated category than I did, and as it stands right now, there's only one in there. Although there was one that came kind of close, but, yeah. Yeah, the ones in loved it, I would definitely say if you have not seen those movies, you should. Liked, if you haven't seen them, I'd say maybe. I'd say of the ones in like, the ones I'd recommend the most would be first Guardians of the Galaxy, Shape of Water. And if you haven't seen it, I actually don't want to see most of these, although I'm interested in Grand Budapest Hotel, Birdman, Hereditary, Moonlight, and The Favorite, maybe Ex Machina. I've heard that movie the movie gets a little misogynistic in the subtext, so maybe I won't watch it. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. But, as for the next tier-making video, I have absolutely no idea. It's been like a few months since I made the last one, and I have, like, made no effort to even try to find another one of these to do. And, you know, if I find, like, more than a couple that I want to do, I'll put them up to my vote on my Twitter, at Arkle, A-R-K-L-E, but that's only a maybe. I'm not promising that. Sorry if this got a little rambly. I'm kind of trying to rush this out because I've got something that I need to be doing fairly soon. And yeah, okay. So see you next time on an Arkle Studios tier making video. I don't have an outro for these, do I? Actually, I usually don't have outros. I think I only recently started doing the have fun, stay safe thing over on Shameless Cash Grab, but, yeah, okay, bye. I suck at this.